Chiefs Ravens 2023 Conference Championship Review. It's time to look a little deeper at this game. I did, in my picks, choose the Ravens to win, and I don't think I was alone in that. The Ravens looked like the best team in football for most of the year, at least the second half of the season. They were the best team in football. They looked like the most complete team in football. They had home field advantage. Everything was set up for the Ravens to get to the Super Bowl and be the favorite to even win the Super Bowl. The problem is the team they were up against was the Kansas City Chiefs. And one of the stories of the playoffs is that Patrick Mahomes actually has to go on the road to win and get to the Super Bowl. He has never played a road playoff game in his career in all these seasons 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Those 5 first seasons, all of them were home playoff games. The Ravens did have it set up. Lamar Jackson most likely will be the regular season MVP. They had a great defense. And most would say, not just looking at the numbers, but just using your eyes and seeing what you see on the field, that the Ravens had the best defense in the NFL. And after all, defense wins championships, right? Even in this day and age, defense makes a great difference. And if you have a bad defense, quite frankly, you're not going to win. But we do live in the quarterback era where having the best quarterback can make up for weaknesses elsewhere, as long as you still have a good defense. But the team with the best defense does not necessarily go the distance or even get to the Super Bowl. They may get in the Super Bowl, but they will lose in the Super Bowl if they don't have one of the top quarterbacks. Lesson learned from this was, as a 49er fan, 2019 Super Bowl, our defense was much better than the Chiefs. We had a better all-around team. The problem was the Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes. The 49ers had Jimmy Garoppolo, and I can get into all the details of that another time. But Chiefs, Ravens, this game was lost early. It was lost, in my opinion, in the first quarter. I mean, you can even argue it was lost on the opening possession by the Ravens. The fact that they went 3 and out to start the game against the Chiefs. This was their time to win. This was their game to win. They're at home. I mean, it's a great home field advantage, too. That is one of the best outdoor home field advantages is in Baltimore. Get the ball, score first, put pressure on the Chiefs, and then let your defense do its job. But they didn't. Chiefs get the ball instead after the 3 and out. And the pressure is not on the Chiefs. The pressure is clearly on the Ravens. And Patrick Mahomes so impressively leads the Chiefs down the field. He had the 4th down conversion. He had the pass to Kelce. I mean, he just had it all on display. He's doing lob passes this game. We think about the 4th down pass. Perfect placement to Kelce. We saw the pass that he made on the first touchdown. He threw a ball that was low and to the corner of the end zone, only where Kelce could catch it, even though Hamilton was draped all over him. And Mahomes was brilliant, and he was the star of this game, not Lamar. And I learned my lesson in this game. I have continuously picked against Patrick Mahomes, and I have been wrong and wrong and wrong. I picked, generally when I do pick against Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs win. I can remember picking the Chiefs to beat the Buccaneers in 2020. I was wrong about that one. But then in 2022, last year's Super Bowl, I was picking the Eagles because I said, well, they have the better all-around team. Jalen Hurts is playing well. What the difference in that game was Patrick Mahomes. Then again, well, in this playoffs, I thought it was a no-brainer picking the Chiefs at home against the Dolphins, so I picked the Chiefs. But then the last two rounds, including this one, I thought the Bills would narrowly beat the Chiefs in Buffalo. No, the Chiefs win. And then here in Conference Championship Sunday, the Chiefs get done and get done on the road again. In many ways, this has been Mahomes' most impressive run to the Super Bowl because he's done it on the road and he's done it without Tyreek Hill. And his receivers are very average out there. I mean, Travis Kelce, until this game, had not been the Travis Kelce that we're all used to seeing. I mean, his numbers, Mahomes, have not been overly impressive. I mean, they're not eye-popping, but he's very efficient. He makes the big plays. As I said, he makes the plays only he can make out there. And he's not turned the football over at all. He's been so smart. And this may, even though the numbers, again, are not huge, he's not putting up 300-yard games every week. This is probably the most impressive football he's played. The best version of Mahomes, and I agree with everyone who says that. It's not necessarily about throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns in 300, 400-yard games. It's about making the plays when you need to, being smart, knowing when to tuck it and run, and not making the careless mistake. We've seen that with a lot of quarterbacks throwing it up, good quarterbacks throwing it up, and then getting picked off instead of just saying, you know what, I'm just going to take a sack and I'm not going to turn the football over and put my defense in a compromising position. So the Chiefs won the game, I want to say again, in the first quarter. They ran the ball effectively. They made enough plays and they put the pressure and they took away any momentum that the Ravens could have had, the Chiefs had. And by the time the Ravens really got together on defense, it was too late. You go on to the other side of the football, Lamar Jackson, he has plays that only he can make. The tipped batted ball that went up the air that he caught and start running with, I don't know of anyone else who could do that. That was amazing. Or the one touchdown pass he had, the long touchdown pass to Flowers, where he gets out of the sack, he spins out of it, and then he throws his deep touchdown pass. Amazing. Okay, he's a highlight reel player, but you cannot pick, and I was so foolish to do this, you cannot pick a quarterback like Lamar to beat Patrick Mahomes. I mean, when you're Patrick Mahomes, it kind of reminds you of, this is an NBA comparison, when David Robinson won the MVP, and Hakeem, this was in the NBA playoffs, Hakeem Olajuwon's like, hey, I'm still the best center in the NBA. You may get the hardware, but I'm going to go out and prove it. And Lamar's most likely to get MVP. Mahomes is like, who cares? We all know he's the better quarterback. And Lamar is the best athlete out on the field. He's a dual threat like none other. But in these games, you have to beat your opponent with your arm. You have to be able to read defenses. You have to be able to process and go through your progressions. And he's very limited and very average at doing that when you have one of the greatest quarterbacks. We can say that now. Now that this is his 4th Super Bowl for Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterbacks who's ever played, who is as skilled as Patrick Mahomes is. And a mobile quarterback who's more about his legs than his arm is not going to get it done at the end of the day. You've seen certain mobile quarterbacks who have gotten it done, but they first and foremost always get it done with their arm. And then secondarily, they run. I mean, Steve Young would be the great example. Steve Young was an incredible thrower of the football. And he ran to go along with that. Lamar, I've just never been sold on him as a passer. It's ugly just watching him throw. He makes it work because the defense has to be so concerned about him running at all times, so he gets more open receivers. It's not to say he can't ever make big plays and some good plays throwing. He does. But he's a very average thrower, and as an average thrower, you're not going to win at all. When you just say drop back and throw, can't do it. Ravens were shut out in the third quarter when they needed to do it and come back. It was 17-7 at halftime. 17-7 Chiefs. And at that point, it was over. You knew it was over. They weren't coming back. This game was done at halftime. I remember Bill Walsh doing a game on NBC, rewatching, I believe it was the Bills and Raiders 1990 championship game in Buffalo. And they would never say this on TV anymore. You get fired for saying this. He said, well, folks, this game's over. Essentially, you don't need to keep watching. This game is over. Well, this game was over. The better quarterback was on the field that day was Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes, like I've said with Olajuwon, I don't care what you may win during the regular season. You can get the MVP. I'm the best quarterback. And he went out there and proved it. And the fact that, once the Chiefs went up 7-0, the Ravens were in a lot of trouble. I mean, they were in trouble when they went 3-and-out. And the fact that they were able to run the ball early with Pacheco and move the chains, that was trouble for the Ravens. Though if you look at the final numbers, they only ran for 2.8 yards a carry, but they were effective early on, while the Ravens, they had 81 yards rushing at 5.1 average. So this game was decided, and it was decided early on. Travis Kelce had a huge game, 11 receptions, 116 yards on 11 targets. 11 receptions on 11 targets. Coming into the game, I thought the difference was going to be the defense of the Ravens. Well, it wasn't. It was the Chiefs' defense. The Ravens, once we were going through the game and seeing, they played more of a zone defense, and that is not good when you're facing Patrick Mahomes. Whenever the Ravens brought pressure, Jay Mahomes would just go right where the pressure was and throw there. And they had no answer. I mean, you'd think between those two linebackers that the Ravens have, and Hamilton, such great athletes on the field with Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, and Hamilton, they would focus on taking away Kelce, and they would have the guys to do it. And they couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. And give all the credit to the coaching of the Chiefs, to Andy Reid, phenomenal. And we'll talk about that more in the Super Bowl preview. So this is Andy Reid's 5th Super Bowl is going in, and he has entered the conversation as one of the all-time great coaches now. He's there on the Mount Rush, close to being on the Mount Rushmore of NFL head coaches. That's not a ridiculous thing to say. Not when you're now in your 5th Super Bowl and you're going for your third Lombardi. And he's been this good for this long, second most wins in postseason history. So let's give some credit to him. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Steve Spagnuolo has been getting the credit he deserves this past week. As Brian Baldinger said, there's been no greater big game defensive coordinator in the history of the sport. Think about what he did to the 2007 Patriots. And I was concerned as a 49ers fan in the 19 Super Bowl. I'm like, that Chiefs defense is that good. But Steve Spagnuolo's their coordinator. And this playoff run for the Chiefs has been one of the highlights of his career, too, even if they fall short. Because this team has Patrick Mahomes, yes, but the offense is not the big play dynamic offense anymore. The defense stepped up for the Chiefs, not the Ravens. They were the better defense. As they contained, with the exception of just a couple plays, they contained Lamar Jackson on the road. And the way they've drafted, they're not necessarily the biggest names outside of Chris Jones, but they have good players on all three levels. Karlaftis is very good. Nick Bolton is very good. The two cornerbacks, McDuffie and Snead, are excellent corners. They've drafted well, and you know what? The draft picks that they got from the Tyreek Hill trade, they've turned around and they've bulked up their defense. And it's worked. I mean, when you look at what they've done, this is back-to-back Super Bowls, and they may win back-to-back Super Bowls without Tyreek Hill. And I was surprised to see the way the Ravens lost their composure in this game from a John Harbaugh team. I don't expect that from a John Harbaugh team. John Harbaugh is a great coach too, but his team lost it, and they had stupid penalties. Lamar throwing his helmet. You had the Flowers penalty. I mean, you want to talk about the ultimate comeback. He taunts Snead, and then Snead is the player that goes ahead and knocks out the ball from Flowers to force the fumble. And there's your difference in the game, 17-10. I mean, that is the ultimate revenge play within such a short period. And then, Odell Beckham Jr., I can't stand that guy, to be honest. He's up there, making all this noise and showing off his stuff. And it's like, you're losing. And I don't think you even caught a ball till the fourth quarter. You don't matter. You're a non-factor. Just sit down and shut up. That's what I was saying. This is one of the all-time great wins for the Chiefs organization, this championship game, for Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and they're back in another Super Bowl again. This is, like I said, 4 for Mahomes now, 4 Super Bowl appearances, now 5 for Andy Reid. Travis Kelce in this game became the all-time playoff record holder for receptions in playoff history. I mean, I always have to say, when you look at that, he is playing in the era he's playing in, but still very impressive. They're heading off to play the 49ers, rematch of 2019 Super Bowl. There's not a lot we can take from that Super Bowl because of all the turnover. But we know one thing, that Patrick Mahomes is on that field And right now, no one is more difficult to beat him. And he looks very determined. He's very focused. And since they've already won, I mean, of course you want to win more. There's more pressure on the other team. I mean, that's how it's been throughout these playoffs. That unlike other years where you can say, well, in 19, the Chiefs want to come back and win after what happened to them with the Patriots, of course. So there was pressure to get back. There was pressure when you're the number one seed, which the Chiefs are almost always the number one seed. But we finally got to see this game. I have to say that too. I'm sorry for jumping around, but we finally got to see this Chiefs-Ravens game. I'm glad we did. It was fun being in Baltimore for a change, although I love Arrowhead. But the Chiefs have played well as being the road team and a team that has been considered by many at a disadvantage or an underdog in these playoffs against the Bills. Okay, they should have beat the Dolphins, but they were really underdogs against the Bills and the Ravens. And while the pressure was on the other team, Patrick Mahomes, like the great quarterbacks, was playing cool out there. He was in control of the game, and he was ready for it. But that goes for the whole team. The whole team. I mean, that really is such a great pairing of Andy Reid on offense, and then on defense, you have Spagnuolo. And they've stayed together all these years because no one wants to hire Spagnuolo. So you see all these players and teams that didn't make it to the Super Bowl. They're going to be playing in the Pro Bowl games. The Pro Bowl games. That's the Ravens. That's the Bills, the Lions, the Eagles, the Cowboys. And by the way, that's where the Cowboys belong, in the Pro Bowl games. And I don't like having to talk any more Cowboys, and I have to, but, you know, it's so silly, that whole Dak Prescott, here we go. What good did that do? It was like the whole thing that they tried, that's going to be the difference in our season, is him saying, here we go. Well, you didn't even get past the wild card round. You're going to be going to the Pro Bowl again. But we have a great Super Bowl preview. Chiefs and 49ers do some extra special episodes and previews of what I would expect to be a close game and a very competitive game and a matchup we've seen before in the Super Bowl. And the Chiefs, I'll just say this when we finish here, the Chiefs are, though, the hotter team. The 49ers are the more talented team, but the Chiefs are playing better. They're playing better on defense, and they do have the better quarterback. That's going to be hard to beat. And it's going to be Las Vegas's first Super Bowl. And I'm excited. Of course, I have a personal interest in this game, with my team being the 49ers, and has to be Patrick Mahomes. If it has to be Patrick Mahomes, it has to be Patrick Mahomes. But wow, that's going to be one hard game. Super Bowl 58. And a final word about the Ravens and the Lions, since they fell short. The Ravens totally blew it. They had the number one seed. Lamar Jackson's playing his best football coming into the playoffs, his best season as a professional quarterback in the NFL. You had a great roster from top to bottom. You had the Chiefs at home in Baltimore, and you could not get it done. And by the time you start making adjustments in the second half, it was too late. The game was lost. They're never going to have a better opportunity than this. They aren't. Lamar Jackson is not going to get better. This is as good as he's going to be at this point. He only has a couple seasons of being this athletic left. And once he can't run around like this, he's an average quarterback, maybe a worse than average quarterback. Could you just say go back and pass 30, 40 times a game without being the threat of being a runner? There's nothing special there anymore. There's not a whole lot there anymore for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. This was their best opportunity. And then the Lions. The Lions were up 24-7 at halftime. When are they going to have an opportunity like that again? You're the Lions, and you lose that game. You couldn't close out the 49ers, and you fell apart. Not so much from the play on the field. The coaching let you down. Dan Campbell, as good of a season as he had one of the all-time bad halves of a coach. As much as Kyle Shanahan's criticized for the Super Bowl, or I should say Super Bowls, 24-7. You're up 24-7 and you lose. What we do have is a great Super Bowl to look forward to and a lot to talk about between the 49ers and Chiefs. And two historic franchises now. The 49ers had a dynasty. The Chiefs get a Super Bowl victory. They'll be a dynasty.